So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents out there. I know a lot of people have dissected these videos. I just wanted to throw out some of my thoughts and observations about the Charlie Kirk shooting and just some things that I noticed for whatever it's worth. So if you look here, you can see that he's obviously wearing a microphone, probably a wireless microphone, although I do have some questions about that. The square that you see right here is the magnetic back part of the microphone. So for some reason, I don't know if it's for aesthetic reasons or what, but he has the microphone inside of his shirt and not on the outside. So a lot of times what you'll see are people with the microphone itself on the outside. It would be probably about this big. You can see the outline slightly here. And then this black part that you see is on the inside. You know, maybe it's for aesthetic reasons, whatever. I don't know. He's worn it both directions, outside and inside out. But you can see here in this video, he's grabbing onto not the mic itself, which I thought is kind of interesting. These are usually wireless mics. There could be a lapel, depending on the mic version that's plugged into it. But they usually have their own battery source, their own power source. So anyways, he's grabbing onto something below the microphone, and you can see him adjusting it there. Now, if we go back to the very first video that most people saw the day this happened, it was from this angle. This is the first angle I saw. It's the first angle I know a lot of people saw. And when I first saw this, I never paid any attention to details, but you can see, and it's clear in pictures, and when this video is not quite as big as it is right now, you can see a very obvious path like this. It's much more obvious in other places. I don't know what that is exactly. It could be that he's got, you know, something wrapped down here that taps into the mic and then goes across the top of his chest and then wraps around his left shoulder. I don't know. All I do know is that he has a microphone here. It's inverted, so the microphone's inside of his shirt. And when he's adjusting it, you can see he's grabbing onto something other than the microphone itself, so, which kind of validates the fact that there's something else coming down here that he's grabbing onto. So anyways, whatever. So let's move on here. So in the video itself, I've slowed this down by about 20x. It's pretty slow. And you know, I keep hearing people say that maybe he was shot at this angle, like from behind or something. You know, the original narrative is that, you know, he was wearing body armor, which he's very clearly not wearing. I think that's been almost 100% debunked at this point. That he was, you know, he's wearing body armor and the bullet, you know, ricocheted off the top of the body armor and went up into his neck. You know, that was the theory floating around for several days until everyone noticed that he just wasn't wearing body armor. Now, if you watch this video, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And right here, you can see this area violently goes upwards towards where, you know, the eventual hole is in his neck. And based on this angle, we can't really tell at what point that hole was created. I mean, we're all kind of assuming it must have been a bullet. Maybe it was, who knows? Maybe it could have been something else, but we can't tell exactly when that forms. But what we can see is that it goes violently upwards. You know, there's something happening in his chest here. The problem is we don't see any bullet holes. You know, there's no shrapnel firing off. Again, he's not wearing body armor anyways, but it's just odd that you don't see anything other than this very violent move upwards, okay, from the front. Because if you go over here and you look at, this video here, you don't see anything violently happening on his back. There's nothing violently happening up in this area. All the movement is in his chest right there. You can see it. It's such a pronounced upward projection of something. It's, I mean, it almost, what it's always made me think of is that there was some kind of projectile, not a bullet, but just something sharp that almost like poked up and just whacked him in the throat right here. I don't know. That's just what it looks like. Now let's go back here again. We can go back and forth really slow. Now watch his hair up here. Okay, there's movement. Obviously something is happening, and something's happening. There comes a point where he's really hit by something. And you can tell that that impact takes place because watch his hair. It flaps down. There's a moment where, right there, boom. So at that point, something really happens. You would think if it was a bullet hitting him, that very, very violent movement would immediately cause his hair that you see right there, like immediately before anything, with that kind of, just force from a bullet like that, if it was a 308 or a 306 or 30-06 round, like immediately, the first thing you wouldn't be seeing his chest rising like this, whatever is here, and then the hard impact right there, boom. There was already something taking place right here. If you go back and forth, it's even more obvious. Almost looks like an alien jumping out of his chest or something. But something's taking place right here, and you just don't see a projectile. You don't see a hole. I know this video is not very clear, and there are other clearer videos. You just don't see anything form right there. It just looks like something lurched up that was maybe attached to his chest and just hit him in the throat right there. Bam. That's as bloody as it gets right there. But I'm just pointing that out because I haven't seen people really focus on that. It just, something was taking place. And you can see his facial expression doesn't even change until right there, where the hair starts falling down. Something's happening. Then his facial expression starts changing. The hair flips down, and we know the rest of the story. So it's just kind of odd when you look at it like this. Very slowed down, smoothed out, and you go back and forth. It just does not look like he was hit from here or even directly in the front. Like if anything, if the shooter was on top of a building, there would be a very slight incline. It would be coming down. And I just have a hard time believing that a bullet at even a slight angle coming down would cause such a violent thrust upwards. Like it's very clear that whatever's happening is coming up. That's not down. I mean, it's not sideways. It's happening upwards. Very obviously, at least it is to me. And then if we go to this video, again, upwards. Boom, something's happening up. And then obviously the hole forms and, the rest is history. But I don't know. One of the theories floating around is that there was something wired into this mic or whatever this is that's wrapping around his upper chest and across his shoulder. In other videos, you don't really see any kind of earpiece or anything. I've looked at a bunch of different videos. There's just really nothing there unless he tucked it under his hair. You don't really see anything in his ear or even coming down the side. So I'm not sure what this is. It probably has something to do with the microphone, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. But it's just the fact that all the motion is up, goes up. And it doesn't seem like, a bullet came from the side or just straight on to have such a violent upward thrust at that specific area. People have said maybe there was a detonator or some kind of projectile that was built into whatever he was wearing. I don't know. I'm just presenting what I'm seeing. I'm presenting what looks kind of odd to me. And again, when you go back and forth, it just looks so odd to be saying that a bullet hit him from a downward angle from any direction. So anyways, I don't know. Who knows if we'll ever find out the truth about what happened. There's so many holes. It's really hard to understand or, figure this out. And I just don't feel like the FBI or anyone else is giving honest answers. I think most people feel that way at this point. So do with this whatever you want to do. Maybe this changes your mind or gives you something else to think about. Like everyone, I'm just trying to process this and sharing what I've noticed.